One of the biggest themes that really are having a huge impact on what the election is all about. US election 2024 is incomplete till we mention immigration, one of the three key issues on which this election is essentially being fought on. And some of the data that former President Donald Trump shared regarding immigrants and crime, linking them, is incorrect. In fact, Donald Trump seems to be promoting a fair bit of rhetoric as far as immigration is concerned, and this was in Wisconsin where he had held his latest rally, and he's also slammed his opponent Kamala Harris with some very strong remarks. But what really is the on-ground story? How important is illegal immigration? Does it really matter in border states, and could it become the deciding factor? Can Kamala Harris bridge the gap between her and Donald Trump on the key issue of immigration? That's exactly what we will be discussing today. But before that, take a look at this report that tells you exactly why this is one of the central themes of this election.
Donald Trump has falsely alleged that 13,099 convicted murderers have crossed the border and are free to roam and kill in the United States under the Biden administration, and tried to tie the problem to Harris's actions as vice president, falsely labeling her the border czar. Trump and his allies are misrepresenting data from ICE about undocumented immigrants with criminal records, suggesting thousands were released under the Biden administration. The data, which was released by Immigration and Customs Enforcement to Congress late last week, shows there are 13,099 immigrants with homicide convictions who are not currently jailed by ICE. But the reported 13,099 immigrants with homicide convictions come from a database that spans 40 years, not just the Biden era. These individuals are part of a non-detained docket, people with pending immigration cases who are not in ICE custody for various reasons, including already serving their sentences. But Republican lawmakers have seized this data to criticize Democrats, specifically Vice President Kamala Harris, whom former President Donald Trump has tried to portray as weak on the border as the election approaches. But as the politics of it plays out, it is crucial to note that at present, there is no evidence that undocumented immigrants commit violent crimes at higher rates than US citizens. Parmeshwar Bava for NDTV World.
Okay, so some of the numbers, let me just put that out, and then we also get in Anjana Sankar, who's a senior journalist of the national newspaper based in Abu Dhabi. She was in some of these border states, and she's going to give us a sense of how important or critical these areas, these states could be in deciding the winner. Okay, Anjana Sankar joins me, and I'm going to keep coming putting out those information, whether it is about the arrest rate, the immigrants, the undocumented immigrants, all of that numbers we'll keep putting out. But Anjana, my first question to you is that you've been at some of these border states, you've witnessed some of that issue firsthand. Talk to us about the scale of this issue and how big a bearing it could have in these elections.
Yeah, thank you for having me. On the onset, I would like to say that with all the debates that we are having around the issue of immigration, all the political tit for tat that we see between Kamala Harris and Trump, all the vitriolic which is associated with the issue of immigration, especially from the Trump camp, as somebody who was there, as you said, when you see the issue up close, it's nothing like what we see in these debates, because what you see there at the border are hundreds and thousands of humans. When you interact with them, the stories are really heartrending. So no matter what the political divide is about the issue of immigration, these people keep coming because they are fleeing from violence. They are looking for a better life in another country. They are leaving their homeland. And we're talking about women, sometimes pregnant women, families, men. They're all taking this very dangerous trip across the desert, across Mexico and the Darien Gap, coming through to the US borders to secure a life. So that is the reality that you see there.
Okay.
And when you talk to people, what struck me was all these conversations about drug mafia coming through, people who are invading the U.S., people who are dangerous to the U.S., rapists, drug lords. I did not personally see any of that. These are people who desperately cross and wait for the border patrol.
Okay.
To take their names, register them, and let them free so that they can
start
a new life.
So I want to ask you two questions. I get it. What you're saying is you talk about the human misery aspect of it, the human angle of some of these people who want to cross the border. But the other side to it is, and which is what the essential issue is. I mean, one can debate and have a discussion about, how much of what Donald Trump says is factually correct or not. But the fact that the southern states of America are witnessing a huge influx of people coming in is a matter of great concern. I'm not saying this, several polls are saying this, which is why Donald Trump leads Kamala Harris on immigration issue. The question I want to ask you is, did you feel that with the electorate you spoke to the undocumented people who want to come to the US, but what about some of those people who will be voting in the elections on 5th of November? Do they feel this as a major issue?
Yeah, definitely, no doubt. Immigration, especially in this election, it has always been a major issue, political issue in the US, but definitely for this election, it has become the most important issue for the US electorate. One of the reasons is the sheer scale of migrants that have come in. You're talking about around 1.8 million asylum seekers in 2023. And that number, when you pit it against previous year's numbers, the pre-COVID numbers, this is a massive rise. And the diversity of people of different nationalities that are coming from Chinese, Afghans, not just South Americans, there are Indians, there are a lot of them coming in. So a big issue for the electorate is definitely the question whether this kind of tidal wave of migrants that are coming in, is that going to impact the resources of different states? And it is, various states have spoken about, how offering shelter, free healthcare and housing for these migrants have affected their resources. And for example, some of these border states in 2020, end of 2023, 2024, they have adopted this busing of migrants, which is quite new in the US. When I was there recently, border states like Texas are busing hundreds and thousands of migrants into more so-called liberal states, sanctuary states like New York, Massachusetts, to send these migrants so that they will offer them housing. So it's like a tit for tat move. So what they're saying is, you have an open door policy for migrants. You're saying that let's welcome these migrants. Okay, you take them. So they're giving money and they're putting migrants on the bus and sending them, truckloads of them, into these liberal states. And for example, in the Logan International Airport in Boston, there were hundreds of migrants who were sleeping at the airport. Okay. Most of the shelters that governments provides were overflowing. So there is definitely a problem of states struggling to meet the financial burden of these migrants, a tidal wave of migrants coming into the US. So it's definitely an issue for the electorate.
Okay, so yes, it's a major issue, and the latest polls, I'm talking about the latest Pew research that has come in, says that 6 out of 10 Americans rate immigration as very important in determining who they will vote for. And some of the other polls suggest that they prefer Trump, they trust Trump to handle the issue more effectively than Kamala Harris. I'm not getting into some of the other details and the vitriolic campaign on both sides, but this is the latest poll that has come in. The question I'm asking is that what do you think is the political divide on this issue like? There is of course entrenched positions, but you spoke to a lot of people. Talk to us about the political divide on something as big as this issue.
Yeah, what you said is right. That's exactly what we saw. There are people on two extremes. So no matter what the debates are, no matter what the facts that you put out, they are going to hold on to their sides. There are extreme supporters, people who believe that immigration should be looked upon as a humanitarian issue, there should be a humane approach to immigration. And there is on the other side of the divide people who attack migrants. They demonize migrants as people who are invading the US illegally. But in between, people who are sitting on the fence, those are the people who are questioning what are the policies, what are these two candidates putting on the table? Where should we vote depending on what are they talking about when it comes to addressing the political issue? So one major concern that a lot of common people who are neither on the extremes are looking at is there is a consensus among people that no country can have an open border. You cannot just leave the border open and have, hundreds and thousands of people just walk in without any kind of, control. So there is definitely an agreement that you need to secure the border.
Yes.
But at the same time, people know, and that some people don't admit it, but people know that the immigration system, the asylum system in the US
needs to be revisited. It
is broken.
All right.
And the very fact that there is more than 1 million cases of asylum cases pending within these asylum courts is proof that, the system has to, they have to mend the system if they want to streamline the process.
All right, Anjana, thank you so much for taking out the time, explaining to us in detail about an issue that is likely to decide the future course of the US election.